Alex is an actor. And Alex, what made you pick up the phone?
Well, I just think that there's a bit of scapegoating going on, because the reality is that the politicians are reflecting the British public. We've already voted for this guy twice, knowing that he's a scurrilous liar with no integrity. Brexit followed by a huge majority.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm not going to argue with your arithmetic, but I mean, I speak to these people quite a lot, not as much as I used to, admittedly, but they were pretty adamant that he wasn't a scurrilous liar with no integrity. They were pretty adamant that he was, messianic in his appeal.
I think his parenting record sort of speaks for itself.
To you and me it does, and to people who genuinely care about parenting issues, as opposed to people who simply pretend or who turn a blind eye when it's someone they like behaving abominably, like a sort of character from a Jeremy Kyle episode or Shameless. So it's not that. And I understand your point, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the MPs who publicly said that they were minded to do the right thing when the report was published, and I believed them at the time. I really did. And so it's the question of why they have now decided not to do the right thing.
I think at the time they thought that this might finally bring the Boris bandwagon to an end.
Yes.
And over the course of the last few months, they've realised that it probably won't.
Yeah, that's
at the end of the day, do we need the CEO to be the high priest? When you look at it, it's a choice of options. I've been forced to vote for Boris, even though I can't stand him on a moral, personal level, because of a paucity of options. I think there was a caller on Nick's show earlier describing Keir as a woke thunderbird, and I thought it was a really rather apt description.
Well, you know what I do if someone uses that word? I ask them what they mean by woke, and the weird thing is they never know. But I can see why that might have been your calculation. So go on.
It's highly likely he's played it in a way that he's going to carry the can and lose his job because of rule indiscretions, while his main opponent.
But that is the prioritisation of principle over ambition. I mean, that's precisely what you're supposed to want in a political leader.
I know. I couldn't agree more. And don't get me wrong. I'm a Lib Dem refugee.
Well, you just called him a woke thunderbird, and what he's what
the caller.
But you said you liked the description, and what he has done is say, do you know what? It's time somebody actually made a stand and said, I'm going to put the principles and the integrity of being a politician above personal ambition and personal reward. I don't know what more a man could do to earn respect from an electorate rather than the kind of abuse you've just regurgitated.
Well, he totally failed to engage the British public. I think
that's not what we're talking about, though. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about his decision, which I imagine was a very difficult one to take, to actually give the people evidence that not all politicians are the same. If it hasn't landed with you, Alex, with respect, it's because you don't care as much about integrity as you think you do.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. I'm just talking about...
Well, give me a better explanation then for why... No, give me a better explanation for why you're regurgitating schoolboy insults over a man who has actually done what you came on this programme to tell me that you think political leaders should do.
Is it? Because he hasn't been able to engage anybody with policy. So
you're just repeating yourself again now. You're repeating yourself again now. We're specifically talking about his promise to resign if he's found to have broken the law. The polar opposite conduct of what Boris Johnson has done, the man you called a scurrilous liar with no integrity. So Keir Starmer has demonstrated integrity. He has failings and flaws galore, but he's demonstrated precisely the integrity you're criticising Boris Johnson for not having. How can you be regurgitating schoolboy insults about him instead of pointing to him and saying there's an example of how it can be done?
Well, no, because I think the politicians, and in the same way the media, reflect the public. They don't necessarily lead nor create public opinion. They reflect where it is. And I think we showed our hand at the last election. Well, we handed a man... OK, I take your point on the...
It's not a question of taking my point or the tone. Keir Starmer has done precisely what you seemed to want a political leader to do when you came on and called Boris Johnson a scurrilous liar with no integrity.
I want a leader. I don't actually personally think that's that important. I want him to be a CEO that runs the operation.
And you think people have arrived at the conclusion that Keir Starmer is a woke thunderbird without the ministrations of ludicrously sycophantic cap-doffing client journalists, Alex? Including you, mate. So don't patronise everybody else for being led by the nose by the media when you just give... Of course you are. Calling him a woke thunderbird. Absolutely pathetic. The man has done what Boris Johnson could never do in a million years. He stood up and said, all right, if I'm guilty, I will go.
And Boris Johnson can't do that because he can never take responsibility for anything he's ever done in his life. So, listen, you probably feel a little bit brutalised. Good, because you have proved yourself to be precisely in the constituency that you were criticising other people for being in all along, as if somehow it is merely a reflection of public feeling. Public feeling is created and manipulated by client journalists who are responsible for people describing the man who said he's going to do the right thing, and we probably agree about his success in engaging the country on policy platforms and charisma or whatever you want to call it, but he has done the right thing on this. He's done the right thing. And to think that somehow makes him the wrongin' or the, what was it, the woke Thunderbird? Come on, man, you're better than that.